Hey there, viewers. Here's a question for you. Do you think the truth about someone's health can reveal more than just physical struggles? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Today's story uncovers some startling details about Diddy's condition behind bars, and it might just change how you see everything. Let's dive in. Chapter 1. The rumors start to swirl. Whispers about Diddy's health started almost the moment the cell doors slammed shut. Sean Diddy Combs had built a reputation as one of the most untouchable figures in the entertainment industry. His life was the definition of excess: private jets, multi-million-dollar mansions, and a career that spanned music, fashion, and business. He seemed larger than life, an unstoppable force who turned everything he touched into gold. From the sound of bristled perfume and soap, but all of that changed when he stepped into prison. Behind bars, the aura of invincibility that had surrounded him began to fade, and the cracks in his carefully constructed image started to show. The first sign of trouble came during his initial court appearances. When Diddy walked into the courtroom, people couldn't help but notice something was off. The man who once exuded charisma and power now looked frail and withdrawn. His weight loss was the most obvious change. Once a commanding presence, he appeared visibly thinner, his cheeks hollow and his suit hanging loosely on his frame. His skin, once glowing with the polish of celebrity life, had taken on a pale, almost ashen tone. Observers noted his tired eyes and the way he moved, slowly, as if weighed down by something far heavier than the charges he was facing. The media pounced on his transformation. Headlines screamed about his physical decline, with some even speculating that the stress of incarceration was taking a toll on his health. Tabloids published side-by-side comparisons of his photos from just months earlier to his current appearance. The difference was staggering, and it fueled countless debates online. Fans expressed concern, while critics mocked his downfall, labeling it as karma for his alleged crimes. Social media buzzed with theories, each more sensational than the last. Inside the walls of the Metropolitan Detention Center, the rumors were even more intense. Fellow inmates whispered about Diddy's behavior and speculated about the reasons behind his dramatic weight loss. Some claimed he wasn't eating the prison meals out of fear of being poisoned. It wasn't hard to believe. After all, Diddy's wealth and fame had likely made him more enemies than friends. Others suggested that he was simply unable to adjust to the harsh realities of prison life. For someone used to five-star cuisine, the prison's basic menu of bread, beans, and canned fruit must have been a shock. Word spread that he was barely eating, relying on occasional commissary snacks rather than the standard meals provided. The idea that he might be starving himself, either intentionally or out of paranoia, added another layer to the mystery surrounding his condition. Guards reportedly noticed his untouched meal trays and raised concerns, but nothing seemed to change. The speculation didn't stop there. Some inmates believed his weight loss was a symptom of something more serious, like a pre-existing illness. They pointed out how quickly his appearance had changed, suggesting that stress alone couldn't explain such a rapid decline. Whispers of a deeper health issue began circulating, but without concrete answers, the rumors only grew. It wasn't long before the press caught wind of what was happening behind the scenes. Journalists dug into every detail they could find, interviewing prison consultants and former inmates to get a better understanding of what life might be like for someone like Diddy. One consultant noted that high-profile inmates often struggle more than others because of the extreme change in lifestyle and the constant fear of being targeted. For Diddy, those struggles seemed to be playing out in real time, and the world was watching. Then came the moment that sent the rumor mill into overdrive. A doctor, known to handle more serious cases within the prison, was seen making multiple visits to Diddy's section of the facility. This wasn't the usual prison medical staff checking on minor ailments. This was a specialist, brought in for something significant. The sighting was enough to spark a frenzy of speculation. Why was the doctor there? What could be so serious that it required outside intervention? Some speculated that Diddy's refusal to eat had caused severe malnutrition, while others wondered if he was battling a hidden illness that had only worsened under the stress of incarceration. The lack of official statements only added to the mystery, leaving fans and critics alike to fill in the gaps with their own theories. By now, the questions surrounding Diddy's health had become impossible to ignore. Was he simply struggling to adapt to prison life, or was there something far more serious going on? The presence of the doctor suggested the latter, but without confirmation, all anyone could do was guess. As the days turned into weeks, the rumors continued to swirl. Diddy, once the picture of success and invincibility, now found himself at the center of a growing mystery. Behind the prison walls, his health seemed to be deteriorating, and the world outside was left to wonder just how bad things really were. Chapter 2. The Weight Loss Mystery. When a man starts to look like a shadow of his former self, you know something's wrong. For someone as larger than life as Diddy, his physical transformation was both shocking and unsettling. Just weeks into his incarceration, the dramatic changes in his appearance were impossible to ignore. The man who once seemed indestructible now appeared frail, almost unrecognizable, and the rumors surrounding his health only deepened. The most consistent story coming out of the Metropolitan Detention Center was Diddy's refusal to eat prison meals. Inmates reported that his trays often sat untouched, his portions barely picked at before being collected by the guards. Word spread that Diddy feared the food could be poisoned, a concern not entirely unfounded given his high-profile status and the enemies he had likely made over the years. Prison consultants noted that paranoia like this isn't uncommon for wealthy or famous inmates, who often feel they've become targets within the prison system. But even paranoia couldn't fully explain the severity of his condition. By some estimates, Diddy had lost over 30 pounds since his arrest, a staggering amount in such a short period. Reports described his gaunt face, his once broad shoulders now slumped and thin. The change was so stark that even those who had only seen him on TV or in photos noticed it during his court appearances. Speculation began to run wild. Was it purely stress, malnutrition, or something far more serious? Inside the prison, the whispers grew louder. Some inmates believed his weight loss was deliberate, that he was starving himself out of protest or despair. Others suggested it was the natural result of stress and the shock of being thrown into a completely different environment. Diddy, a man used to private chefs and luxury dining, now faced the reality of bland, institutional food. The psychological shift alone could have been enough to throw him off balance. Still, others wondered if there was more to the story. The way his condition seemed to deteriorate so quickly raised questions about an underlying health issue. Was there a medical reason for his inability to maintain his weight? Could it be tied to a pre-existing condition, something he had managed to keep private until now? The lack of clear answers only fueled the speculation. Adding to the intrigue were the occasional glimpses of Diddy in the prison yard or during visits from his legal team. Observers noted how he moved slowly, with less energy than before. Some even described his demeanor as withdrawn, almost defeated, a far cry from the confident mogul who had once commanded rooms full of people. His fragile mental state seemed to mirror his physical decline, and the connection between the two became a frequent topic of conversation among those following the story. Experts chimed in, offering their own theories about what might be happening. One prison consultant suggested that the combination of stress, isolation, and the abrupt lifestyle change could easily lead to a condition known as prison malnutrition, where inmates lose weight rapidly due to poor appetite and anxiety. Another pointed out that the psychological toll of incarceration often manifests physically, with symptoms like weight loss, fatigue, and weakened immunity. But not everyone was convinced that stress alone could explain Diddy's condition. Some inmates speculated about a possible eating disorder, noting that he rarely ate even the snacks he was allowed to purchase from the commissary. Others hinted at the possibility of a more serious illness, though no one could agree on what it might be. The media, of course, latched on to every detail, turning speculation into headlines. Articles dissected his diet, his movements, and even his posture, painting a picture of a man on the verge of collapse. Social media was no kinder, with some users expressing concern while others mocked his apparent fragility. For a man who had built his empire on the image of strength and success, the public scrutiny must have been its own kind of torture. Through it all, one question loomed larger than the rest. What was really going on with Diddy? His refusal to eat, his rapid weight loss, and his seemingly fragile state pointed to something deeper than just stress or a difficult adjustment to prison life. Fellow inmates, prison staff, and even medical professionals had their theories, but no one could say for sure. As the days went on, the mystery only deepened. Each new rumor, each new photo or report added another layer to the story, but no real answers emerged. All anyone knew was that Diddy was changing, and not for the better. The man who had once seemed untouchable now looked as though he might break at any moment, and the world was left to wonder how much longer he could hold on. Chapter 3. The HIV accusation. One rumor hit harder than the rest. It wasn't just about food or stress. It was about a life-threatening condition. The whispers began quietly, like they often do, but they didn't stay quiet for long. Sean Diddy Combs, the man who had once symbolized success and invincibility, was now the center of explosive claims about his health. And this time, the accusations weren't just about his weight loss or frailty. They pointed to something far more serious: HIV. The fire was lit by Jaguar Wright, a controversial figure known for her unfiltered commentary on the music industry. In one of her infamous public tirades, she insinuated that Diddy's health struggles might stem from an undisclosed HIV diagnosis. The accusation, vague yet damning, immediately caught the attention of the media and fans alike. Social media erupted with debates, as hashtags and threads dissected every word she said. Listen. But even as the rumor gained traction, there was no solid evidence to back it up. Some dismissed Wright's comments as just another one of her sensational claims. After all, she had made headlines before for her wild stories about other celebrities. Others, however, couldn't ignore the timing. Diddy's rapid weight loss and fragile appearance seemed to align with the symptoms of the condition Wright had mentioned. The public's reaction was swift and polarizing. Fans rushed to Diddy's defense, accusing Wright of fabricating stories for attention. "Where's the proof?" they demanded in online forums. Meanwhile, skeptics pointed to Diddy's silence on the matter as a potential admission of guilt. The longer he went without addressing the allegations, the more people began to wonder if there was some truth behind them. What made the situation even murkier was the media's role in amplifying the speculation. Tabloid headlines shouted things like, "Is this why Diddy looks so frail?" and "Industry insider drops bombshell on Diddy's health." Even mainstream outlets picked up the story, carefully avoiding outright confirmation but still leaning into the drama. TV panels debated whether it was fair to spread unverified claims, while also airing the very rumors they claimed to condemn. Diddy's legal team finally stepped in to address the growing storm. Mark Agnifilo, his attorney, issued a carefully worded statement denying the HIV allegations. "There is absolutely no truth to these baseless rumors," he said, but his choice of words left room for interpretation. While the statement rejected the specific claim, it didn't provide any information about Diddy's actual health. The ambiguity only added fuel to the fire. Why didn't Diddy simply come out and shut the rumors down himself? That question became a focal point for both his critics and supporters. Some argued that he owed no one an explanation, especially while fighting serious legal battles. Others felt that his silence only deepened the mystery. The tension between the two sides created a feeding frenzy, with every new detail, real or imagined, being analyzed to death. In prison, the rumors didn't just stay outside. Inmates reportedly discussed the accusations among themselves, adding another layer of pressure to Diddy's already strained environment. Being the subject of such a high-profile controversy inside the prison walls likely made him even more isolated. Paranoia about his reputation and safety may have played a role in his decision to avoid addressing the claims directly. Through it all, the spotlight on Diddy's health continued to burn brighter. The rumors surrounding an HIV diagnosis became part of a larger narrative about his fall from grace. Whether true or not, the mere association with such a claim chipped away at the image he had worked so hard to maintain. The chapter ended with more questions than answers. Agnifalo's statement may have denied the allegations, but it didn't provide the clarity that many were looking for. Was Diddy's health truly deteriorating because of something as serious as HIV? Or were these rumors just another example of the brutal scrutiny that comes with fame? The truth remained elusive, and for now, all anyone could do was wait for the next piece of the puzzle to emerge. Chapter 4: The Psychological Toll. Prison doesn't just break your body, it breaks your mind. For Sean Diddy, the emotional weight of incarceration was just as heavy as the physical toll. A man used to a world of adoration, luxury, and control, Diddy now found himself confined to a cold, unforgiving environment where he was just another inmate. The cracks in his once impenetrable armor became more visible with each passing day, and the strain reached its peak during the holiday season. Christmas behind bars is hard for anyone, but for someone like Diddy, it was a crushing reality. Reports suggest that the mogul experienced a complete meltdown as the holiday approached. Inmates described hearing him pacing his cell late at night, mumbling to himself and occasionally shouting out in frustration. Guards reportedly found him sitting on the edge of his bunk, staring at the wall for hours. Things came to a head on Christmas Eve. According to insiders, Diddy's anxiety reached a breaking point, leading to what prison staff described as an emotional episode. Details are scarce, but it's believed that he became so distraught that intervention was necessary. Guards escorted him to the prison's medical unit, where he was evaluated by a member of the psychology team. The incident underscored just how deeply the experience of incarceration was affecting him, both mentally and emotionally. The psychological toll wasn't limited to isolated incidents. Diddy's mental state had been a concern for prison officials since the early days of his incarceration. Recognizing the stress he was under, the facility assigned a team of psychologists to monitor him regularly. They visited him multiple times a week, sometimes even daily, to assess his condition. While the prison maintained that this was standard procedure for high-profile inmates, the frequency of the visits suggested that Diddy's case was anything but typical. Prison psychologists reportedly noted several signs of extreme stress during their evaluations. Diddy often appeared distracted, his thoughts scattered and unfocused. He spoke of feeling trapped and helpless, a stark contrast to the confident, self-assured persona he had always projected. There were even hints of paranoia, with Diddy expressing fears that other inmates, or even staff, might be plotting against him. Adding to his stress was the relentless public scrutiny he faced. Even within the prison walls, Diddy couldn't escape the headlines and rumors swirling about his health and legal battles. The knowledge that every detail of his life was being dissected outside likely added another layer of anxiety. For someone who had spent decades carefully crafting his public image, the loss of control over his narrative was devastating. The prison's medical staff did their best to manage the situation. Alongside regular psychological check-ins, Diddy was encouraged to engage in mindfulness and relaxation exercises to help ease his anxiety. However, these efforts offered only temporary relief. The underlying issues, stress, isolation, and the abrupt lifestyle change, remained unresolved. By the end of the holiday season, it was clear that Diddy's mental health was in a precarious state. Rumors began to circulate that his condition might require more than just psychological support. Some inmates speculated that the prison doctor had flagged potential physical complications linked to his stress, while others whispered about a possible transfer to a medical facility. The situation took on an even greater sense of urgency when the prison doctor's report was leaked to insiders. While the full contents of the report remained under wraps, hints about its findings began to emerge. Sources claimed that the report didn't just highlight emotional stress, It suggested a deeper, more complex issue that could have serious implications for Diddy's overall health. For now, the exact details of the report remain a mystery, leaving everyone, both inside and outside the prison, on edge. What could the doctor have uncovered, and how much longer could Diddy endure the mental and physical strain of his incarceration? One thing was clear. Whatever the report revealed, it wasn't going to be good news. Chapter 5. The Doctor's Revelation. After weeks of silence, the truth came out, and it wasn't what anyone expected. For days, whispers about a leaked medical report had circulated both inside and outside the prison walls. Speculation ran rampant. What could the doctors have found that was serious enough to warrant so much secrecy? Finally, details from the report began to emerge, and they painted a grim picture of Diddy's health. The first confirmed diagnosis was severe malnutrition. The rumors about Diddy refusing to eat prison meals had been true, and the consequences were written all over his frail frame. His weight loss wasn't just dramatic, it was dangerous. The report detailed how his refusal to consume adequate nutrition had left his body struggling to function properly. Key vitamins and nutrients were at dangerously low levels, weakening his muscles and leaving him fatigued. The phrase critical health risk appeared multiple times in the leaked documents, underscoring the seriousness of the situation. But malnutrition was only part of the problem. The report also revealed that Diddy's immune system was significantly compromised. What should have been minor illnesses, common colds or minor skin infections, had turned into lingering complications. Sources close to the case hinted that his body was no longer able to fight off infections the way it once could. Every small scratch or cough posed a new risk, adding to the growing list of concerns about his physical state. The medical team noted that the stress of incarceration had played a major role in his deteriorating health. Chronic stress, the report explained, can weaken the immune system over time, leaving the body vulnerable to illnesses it would normally fend off with ease. For someone like Diddy, whose life had been turned upside down overnight, the effects of stress were amplified. The psychological burden of his legal troubles, combined with the harsh realities of prison life, had taken a toll on both his mind and his body. There was, however, one part of the report that raised more questions than it answered. Buried in the medical notes was a vague reference to an underlying condition, something that hadn't been disclosed publicly. While the report stopped short of providing specifics, it hinted at a long-term issue that could explain why his recovery had been so slow and unpredictable. This single line fueled a new wave of speculation, reigniting rumors about his possible HIV status. Despite the report's careful wording, the media latched on to the idea of an undisclosed illness. Headlines once again speculated about Diddy's health, with some suggesting that the undisclosed condition might have been the reason for his rapid weight loss and weakened immune system. Supporters called for transparency, while critics accused him of hiding the truth. The lack of clarity only deepened the mystery, leaving everyone guessing about what the doctors knew that the public didn't. One of the most striking revelations in the report wasn't about Diddy's physical health, but his mental state. The doctors described signs of extreme mental fatigue, noting that his stress levels were bordering on a complete breakdown. The medical notes mentioned episodes of insomnia, mood swings, and periods of deep withdrawal, where Diddy would refuse to engage with anyone for hours at a time. These weren't just the signs of a man struggling with his environment. They were the signs of someone whose mind was beginning to fracture under the pressure. The report also highlighted how the combination of physical and mental health issues was creating a dangerous cycle. His malnutrition made him weaker, which in turn made him more prone to stress illnesses. Meanwhile, his declining mental health made it harder for him to care for himself, perpetuating the downward spiral. The doctors expressed concern that without significant intervention, his condition could continue to deteriorate rapidly. As these details came to light, the focus shifted to what might happen next. Would Diddy's health crisis be enough to warrant a transfer to a medical facility? Or would the prison system continue to manage his care on site, despite the growing risks? The leaked report didn't offer any answers, leaving the public to speculate about what steps, if any, would be taken to address his worsening condition. What was clear, though, was that Diddy's time in prison was no longer just a legal battle. It had become a fight for his life. The man who had once seemed untouchable was now at his most vulnerable, and the world was left to wonder just how much more he could endure. Chapter 6. The public reacts. The world outside prison walls couldn't believe what they were hearing. As news of Diddy's health revelations spread, it sparked an explosion of opinions, debates, and emotions. For some, the idea that one of the world's most influential moguls was now fighting for his life in prison was shocking. For others, it was the ultimate fall from grace. The public reaction was as divided as ever, and it seemed like everyone had something to say. Social media became the battlefield for these debates. Hashtags like "prayers for Diddy" trended alongside "justice served," highlighting the polarized views. Supporters, including longtime fans and some fellow celebrities, flooded platforms like Twitter and Instagram with messages of concern. "No one deserves to suffer like this," one post read, while another called for immediate medical intervention, writing, "If they can't care for his health, they should release him to a hospital." But not everyone was sympathetic. Critics argued that Diddy's condition was a consequence of his own actions. "This is karma," one viral tweet declared, referencing the serious allegations against him. Others dismissed the claims of a health crisis altogether, accusing him of exaggerating his condition to manipulate the legal system. Comments like, "He's playing the sympathy card," and "convenient timing, don't you think?" flooded discussions, adding fuel to the fire. The debate didn't stop there. Questions about fairness and accountability emerged. Was Diddy receiving preferential treatment because of his fame, or was he being treated worse because of his notoriety? Some compared his situation to that of other high-profile inmates, noting that medical issues in prison often go unnoticed or ignored unless the person is in the public eye. For every voice demanding better care, there was another arguing that he deserved no special treatment. Celebrities added their voices to the mix, further intensifying the conversation. A few of Diddy's industry peers expressed concern publicly, with one R&B artist tweeting, "He's given so much to the culture. At least give the man proper care." Meanwhile, others remained silent, perhaps wary of associating themselves with the controversy surrounding his legal troubles. The absence of some high-profile voices didn't go unnoticed, and fans speculated whether it was a sign of distancing or indifference. Beyond social media, the story made waves in traditional media as well. Talk shows debated the ethics of his treatment in prison, with one host stating, "Regardless of what he's accused of, basic human rights include access to proper medical care." Others took a harsher stance, arguing that his condition was the result of his choices, and that sympathy was misplaced. News outlets published op-eds on both sides of the argument, ensuring that the conversation stayed front and center. Amid all this, there was a growing call for transparency. Supporters demanded answers from prison officials, asking why Diddy's health had been allowed to deteriorate so severely. Advocacy groups for prison reform used his case to highlight the broader issues of medical neglect in the system, pointing out that many inmates suffer in silence without the media attention Diddy's case had garnered. "If it's this bad for someone like him," one advocate said, "imagine what it's like for the thousands of inmates no one talks about." Yet, for every voice calling for change, there were those who felt justice was being served. Comments like, "He lived a life of excess and now he's paying the price," echoed a sentiment shared by a significant portion of the public. The accusations against him loomed large in these discussions, with many arguing that his suffering was a consequence of the pain he had allegedly caused others. The divide in public opinion mirrored the larger question surrounding Diddy's future. Could his condition deteriorate to the point where prison officials would be forced to grant him an early release? Some legal analysts speculated that his lawyers might use his health as grounds for a compassionate release request. Others doubted that the system would bend, especially given the severity of the charges he faced. As the public continued to argue and speculate, one question remained unanswered. Could Diddy survive his time in prison, or was his condition a sign that his time was running out? The leaked medical report had raised serious concerns, but it also left many questions unanswered. Would he receive the care he needed in time, or would his story end as a cautionary tale of fame, power, and its eventual collapse? The debates showed no signs of slowing down, and with every new detail, the world remained glued to the unfolding saga. For now, Diddy's fate hung in the balance, and the court of public opinion seemed just as unforgiving as the one he faced in prison. Chapter 7. The Legal Fallout. Health isn't just personal, it's political when you're Sean Combs. As news of his deteriorating condition spread, Diddy's legal team found themselves in a new fight, this time not just for his freedom but for his survival. His health wasn't just a private struggle anymore, it was a pivotal piece of his legal defense, and as his frailty became harder to ignore, his lawyers began using it as a key argument to secure better treatment, or possibly even an early release. He'd been in EKG. The first step came in the form of a motion for medical furlough. Citing Diddy's severe malnutrition, compromised immune system, and fragile mental state, his attorneys argued that the prison environment was endangering his life. They requested that he be temporarily transferred to a hospital where he could receive the specialized care he so desperately needed. Mr. Combs is not just an inmate, his lead attorney, Mark Agnafilo, stated in the motion, is a human being, and his current medical condition requires immediate attention that the prison system cannot provide. But the prosecution wasn't buying it. In their response, they painted a different picture, one of a man using his influence and resources to manipulate the system. They accused Diddy of exaggerating his health issues to gain sympathy and avoid facing justice. This is a classic ploy, one prosecutor argued. High-profile defendants often attempt to leverage their status and perceived vulnerabilities to escape accountability. Mr. Combs is no exception. The prosecution pointed to Diddy's history of controlling his public narrative, suggesting that this was just another chapter in his carefully crafted strategy. They also highlighted the resources already being allocated to his care, including frequent visits from prison psychologists and doctors. The defendant is receiving more attention and accommodations than any other inmate in this facility, their brief read. To grant him special privileges now would set a dangerous precedent. The courtroom battles over his health were intense, with each side presenting their case as a matter of life and death, or justice and accountability. On one hand, Diddy's legal team argued that his declining condition was proof of the prison's inability to meet his needs. On the other, the prosecution framed his health claims as a distraction from the serious charges he faced. As the debate raged on, the judge overseeing the case was left in a difficult position. The stakes were high, and any decision would inevitably spark public outcry from one side or the other. Granting the motion for medical furlough risked appearing lenient on a man accused of heinous crimes. Denying it, however, could result in further deterioration or even death, which would only fuel accusations of neglect and inhumanity within the prison system. In the end, the judge struck a cautious balance. Rather than granting the furlough outright, he ordered an independent medical evaluation to determine the true extent of Diddy's condition. This decision, while neutral on the surface, was anything but simple. The evaluation would require coordination between the prison, external medical experts, and legal teams, creating yet another layer of complexity in an already high professional case. For Diddy, the judge's order was a double-edged sword. On one hand, it provided an opportunity to prove that his health concerns were legitimate and not a legal tactic. On the other, it put him under even greater scrutiny. The results of the evaluation would either validate his claims or expose them as exaggerated, and the stakes couldn't have been higher. Outside the courtroom, public opinion continued to swirl. Supporters saw the judge's decision as a step toward justice, believing that the evaluation would reveal the full extent of Diddy's suffering. Critics, however, viewed it as another delay tactic, arguing that the legal system was bending over backward for a man who had allegedly caused so much harm. Diddy was the most haunted man. The tension only grew as the date of the evaluation approached. Media outlets speculated endlessly about what the findings might reveal. Would they confirm Diddy's fragile state and force the court to reconsider his incarceration? Or would they back up the prosecution's claim that his health concerns were overblown? One thing was certain: the results of the independent medical evaluation would have far-reaching consequences, not just for Diddy's legal case, but for the broader conversation about justice, health, and accountability. And as the world waited for answers, the question of whether Sean Combs could survive both the courtroom and the prison walls remained. Chapter 8. The Final Word. A doctor's final statement left everyone speechless and questioning what comes next. The independent medical evaluation, which had been the center of so much debate, was finally complete, and its findings were both alarming and sobering. After weeks of speculation, the truth about Sean Diddy Combs' health had been laid bare, and it wasn't the kind of news anyone was prepared to hear. The report confirmed what many had feared. Diddy's health was deteriorating at an alarming rate. His severe malnutrition had reached a critical stage, leaving his body fragile and dangerously underweight. The doctor noted that his immune system was so compromised that even a minor infection could spiral into a life-threatening situation. Combined with his chronic stress and mental fatigue, his condition was described as a perfect storm of physical and emotional decline. The doctor didn't mince words about the consequences of leaving Diddy in his current environment. The report warned that the harsh conditions of prison life, poor nutrition, limited medical resources, and constant psychological strain could lead to irreversible damage. If his circumstances do not change immediately, the doctor wrote, the likelihood of recovery diminishes significantly, and the risk of fatal complications increases. The revelation sparked a flurry of speculation about what might happen next. Diddy's legal team immediately seized on the report, renewing their push for a medical furlough or even a compassionate release. This is no longer a question of convenience or comfort, his attorney argued in a press conference. This is a matter of life and death. But the prosecution remained skeptical. While they couldn't ignore the findings, they questioned the motives behind the report, hinting that the doctor's conclusions might have been influenced by Diddy's legal team. The defendant's health is certainly a concern, the prosecution stated, but it should not overshadow the severity of the crimes he's accused. The judge now faced an even tougher decision. The doctor's warnings carried significant weight, but granting a medical furlough or release for someone facing such serious charges would set a controversial precedent. The public was watching closely, and no matter the outcome, the decision would be met with intense scrutiny. Outside the courtroom, the revelations reignited the public debate. Supporters pointed to the doctor's findings as undeniable proof that Diddy's health required immediate attention. They argued that denying him proper care would amount to neglect, regardless of his alleged crimes. This isn't about sympathy, one commentator said on a popular talk show. It's about basic human rights. Critics, however, saw things differently. Many argued that Diddy's health struggles were self-inflicted, a result of his refusal to eat and his inability to adapt to prison life. This is just another chapter in a lifetime of avoiding consequences, a viral social media post read. He should stay where he is and face the same conditions as everyone else. As the legal process unfolded, questions about Diddy's future loomed large. Would he be transferred to a hospital where he could receive the care he so desperately needed? Or would the court decide that his condition, while serious, didn't warrant special treatment? And if his health continued to decline, would it open the door to a broader conversation about the treatment of high profit from inmates? For now, Diddy's fate remained uncertain. The report had made one thing clear. His time in prison wasn't just a legal battle, it was a fight for survival. But whether that fight would end in recovery or tragedy was a question no one could answer. As the chapter closed on this latest revelation, the world was left to grapple with the same question. Do you think Diddy deserves a chance to heal, or is this simply justice catching up to him?